Okay, good morning all of you. Let's get started. Any questions from yesterday's class? Any questions from yesterday's class? So this is what we discussed in yesterday's class. You need to know this transformation from local coordinate system to the global coordinate system, which you can easily write it if you understand the components of this transformation matrix are nothing but direction cosines. Okay, explained in detail how to get these components and then how to get this transformation matrix. Okay, and finally how this element equation system is arrived at. And also we looked at one example consisting of two elements. The detailed workout is given for that example. Important thing is, for each element you need to be very clear what is your local node 1 and local node 2, because your orientation of element is going to depend on that. And this thing is valid. That means whatever identification of local node 1, local node 2, which has a bearing on the direction of the element, okay, direction of your local axis, x-axis, that is applicable even for the 3D trusses and as well as 2D trusses, in the sense plane truss or space truss, or later when we look at plane frame or space frame, in that also that is applicable. Okay, so you should be very clear on this, and you should clearly note down. And also yesterday I told you, if you have this kind of structural system where there is a common node for all the elements, either you be consistent, you be consistent to make this common node either node 1 locally for all the elements or node 2 locally for all the elements. Don't mix up. So the common node should either be locally node 1 or locally node 2. That you need to keep in mind. And once you solve some problems, then I think that idea is going to be very clear to you. Okay. So you get the local equation system or equation system in the local coordinate system for each of these elements. These are the element equations for each of the elements, element 1, element 2. And based on the connectivity, you can assemble the global equation system. And also for this kind of problem, where this these key points. Here, this is named as node 2, this is named as node 3. So this is node 3 and this is node 2. And both these, at both these nodes, displacements both in the vertical direction as well as in the horizontal direction, they are, it's a hinge joint. So they are going to be 0. So in such kind of situation, where your displacement boundary conditions are 0, to get the reduced equation system, you need to delete that particular location of, you need to identify what is the location. Here it is, let's say 3. So you need to eliminate third row, third column. Similarly, fourth row, fourth column, fifth row, fifth column, sixth row, sixth column. So here, all the displacement components, starting from this position, third position to sixth position, they're all 0. So you can eliminate all the rows and columns between 3 and 6, including 3 and 6. Then you get the reduced equation system. And for as a learner, you may need to go through all this. But when the number of number of elements becomes large, when the number here there are only 2 elements. if the number of elements become large, then the size also increases. What is the size of this? What is the size of this? It's a 6 by 6. Why it is 6 by 6? Because there are 3 nodes. At each node you have 2 degrees of freedom. And so now if I have a if I have, let's say 10 nodes in a particular structural system, so then I'm going to get here 20 by 20 equation system. And let's say in 20 by 20 only one node is free, all other nodes are fixed. Then it's not going to make sense to assemble this global stiffness matrix. And if you can do all that calculations in your brain, and directly you can write the reduced stiffness matrix, which happens to be 2 by 2. So what I'm saying is, if you have, let's say there are 2 members here, instead of 2 members, let's say I have 10 members. All the 10 members are joined at this point, at this common node 1, okay? And all other nodes are all hinged. In that case, if I want to assemble global equation system, it's going to be 20 by 20. Finally, the reduced equation system only depends on the nodes which are free to move. So in that particular case, only one node is going to be there, which is free to move. So the reduced equation system is going to be 2 by 2. So in that case, assembling this big matrix is not going to make sense. So you can directly write the reduced equation system if you intelligently number the nodes. So what I told you, you be consistent to make, you select whatever node number you want. You make that node to be common, that common node should be local node 1 or local node 2 for all the elements. Let's say the common node is local node 1. So then how to get that reduced equation system? If common node is local node 1, then only this top quarter of each of the element equations needs to be added. Here, this top quarter of this matrix, you add them together. Here 2 elements. So you add this top quarter, these 4 elements to these 4 elements. You are going to get the reduced stiffness or reduced, this is the reduced stiffness matrix. Even if you have hundreds of elements, same logic you can apply. For all the 100 elements, you assemble the element equations, you take the top corner. If your common node is local node 1, if your common node is local node 2, then this corner. Okay? Any questions here? Same thing you can even apply to even 3D trusses or space trusses. So once you get the displacement at the common node, all other nodes displacements are 0. And one more thing, I told you this equation system, assembly of equation system is not required provided you are interested only in the nodal displacements. So let's say you are interested in the reactions at the supports of all the elements. So let's say I'm interested in the reaction here. What is the reaction at this hinge? What is reaction at this hinge? The reaction is going to have 2 components. Reaction along horizontal direction, reaction along vertical direction, 2 components. And if you want resultant reaction, you can use your trapezoidal rule or trapezium rule and get the resultant, which you must have studied as a part of your 12th class physics or mathematics. So first you get the reactions along horizontal direction, vertical direction. If you are interested in that reactions, then you need to require this global equation system. So once you get U1, V1 here, once you get U1, V1, then you can determine these reactions by multiplying this global stiffness matrix. Once you know these values, you substitute the numerical values, you know this vector, you multiply, then you are going to get this. But if you are not interested in these reactions, then there is no point in assembling this equation system. Okay? So once you get the nodal displacements at the free node, you go to each of the element and determine the local displacements and get the strains, stresses, axial force. And once you get the forces in the members, you need to check whether those forces which you get are making sense or not. Okay, same logic is applicable even for 3D trusses, except your transformation matrix increases in size. Here you can see, here it is clearly written. This component is a cosine of angle between small x-axis and capital X-axis. This is a cosine of angle between small x-axis, capital Y-axis. This component is cosine of angle between small x-axis, capital Z-axis. Similarly, for the other rows also you can see. And I told you these two, small z, small y and small z axis, they are defined for completeness, but we have only this small x axis along the centroid, which coincides with the centroidal axis of the bar element. What is the difference between this bar element and previous bar element? Previous bar element is in the plane of the board, and this bar element is coming out of the board. So this is like a 3D bar element or 3D truss element. So this is denoted with Lx, this is denoted with Mx, this is denoted with Nx, and other things are also similarly denoted. And so small x is related to this global coordinate system via this Lx, Mx, Nx. What is this Lx? What is this Mx? What is this Nx? They are all defined here. Lx is nothing but x2 minus x1 divided by length of element. Mx is y2 minus y1 divided by length of element. Nx is z2 minus z1 divided by length of element. And how do you get the length of element? How do you get this x1, x2, y1, y2, z1, z2? Once you have this element, location of this element, where this element is located, if you know the local node 1 coordinates or node 1 coordinates of that element, node 2 coordinates of that element, you can easily get this Lx, Mx, Nx. You can first you need to determine length of element. Once you have this length of element, you can determine these components, or these are called direction cosines. Once you get direction cosines, you can easily write transformation matrix. Transformation matrix in the previous 2D truss, this T is of dimension 2 rows and 4 columns. Here it's going to be 2 rows, 6 columns. And if you want a global stiffness matrix, this transformation matrix, using this and local stiffness matrix, we need to do this multiplication, and we are going to get global stiffness matrix. So T is, transformation matrix T is 2 by 6. So T transpose is going to be 6 by 2, and KL is 2 by 2, and T is 2 by 6. So 6 by 2, 2 by 2, 2 by 6. If you multiply, you are going to get 6 by 6 matrix. So this is the element equations for 3D truss element. And here also you don't need to write this equation system. It is enough if you remember this quarter, the components in this 3 by 3. What are the components in this 3 by 3? How do you remember this? Please note that EA over L EA over L, that is it's called like axial stiffness of the member, any bar element or truss element, axial stiffness. And this one, how do I remember this portion? Write in all the rows, LX, MX, NX, LX, MX, NX, LX, MX, NX. Write in all the rows, you write LX, MX, NX in all the rows. And then the first row, you multiply with LX. So it's going to be already LX is there. So you are multiplying with another LX. So it's going to be LX square, LX, MX, LX, NX. And here, second row, LX is there. You multiply with MX, it becomes LX, MX, MX square, MX, NX. And third row, you multiply with NX. It's going to become LX, NX, LX, MX. Here it's going to be LX, MX. Okay? Sorry, it's going to be, here it's going to be LX, NX. Here it's going to be NX, MX. And here it's going to be NX square. Anyway, that is not completed here because it's going to be symmetric. So once you get this portion, you copy the same thing here and append a negative sign, copy that here and here. I explained to you, whatever explanation I have given you for 2D truss or plane truss is applicable even here. So this is the element equation system. You assemble the element equation system for all elements, assemble the global equation system, solve for the unknowns. Once you solve for the unknowns, you can determine, once you solve for the unknowns are going to be the global coordinate system. You convert it to local coordinate system, determine strains, stresses, and axial forces. Here directly, axial force equation is given. You can easily cross check. Okay, if you understood plane truss problem or 2D truss problem, you can easily extend that concept here, and it's easy to understand this one. Directly axial force is given. Directly axial force is given. Okay, so now an example is solved here, comprising of 3 elements. All the nodes are fixed. All the nodes are hinged. It's not fixed. All the nodes are hinged except one common node. So similar to whatever concepts that I mentioned, for each of the element you decide which is going to be your local node 1, which is going to be your local node 2. But always make sure the common node is either consistently local node 1 or local node 2 for all the elements. And once you decide that, you can assemble the element equations. You can go through all these numerical values and then cross check whether these calculations are correct or not. Okay. So element 1, what is the local node 1, what is the local node 2, that is also noted here. And for calculating LX, MX, NX, all the details are calculated, and LX, MX, NX are calculated. And then here you can see here EA over L is calculated, and all the components are calculated. This is for element 1. This is for element 2. For element 2, you can see here. For element 1, what is local node 2? For element 1, what is local node 2? It is 4th global. Global node 4 is local node 2 for element 1. Element 2, local node 2 is again global node 4. Consistently it is taken. So element equations for element 2 are also assembled, and there are 3 elements here. So third element, for that also local node 2 is same as global node 4. So you assemble this one, and here you can see there are 4 nodes. There are 4 nodes here. 1, 2, 3, 4 nodes. At each node, 3 degrees of freedom. This is a truss element. So at each node you are going to have, you can see here, at each node you are going to have U1, U1, at node 1 you have U1, V1, W1. At node 2 you are going to have U2, V2, W2. Similarly at node 3, node 4. So at each node you have 3 degrees of freedom. 4 nodes are there. So if you want to write global equation system, it's going to be of size 12 by 12. It's very difficult to write all that using pen and paper. 12 by 12 equation system. And finally, only 1 node is free. Only 1 node is free here. So whatever I told you, if you can intelligently write that reduced equation system, all this node 1, all degrees of freedom are 0. Node 2, all degrees of freedom are 0. Node 3, all degrees of freedom are 0. Only node 4 is going to have some, like, it's going to have some displacement, or it's going to have some movement along x direction, y direction, z direction. So U4, V4, W4 are only non-zero quantities. And here reactions are going to be developed. At 1, 2, 3, reactions are going to be developed. At 4, you are going to have displacements along x direction, y direction, z direction. So reduced equation system is going to be 3 by 3, and unknowns are going to be U4, V4, W4. And what about the forces? What is the force applied? Force applied at node 4, it's given. Force is applied at node 4. Okay, so it's applied. You can see how it is applied. This is z-axis, and this is x-axis, this is y-axis. It's applied in the negative y direction. That also you need to keep in mind. If this force is applied at some inclination, then you need to resolve that force and get the components. Okay, so with all that, so how do I get the reduced stiffness matrix for all the element? Second node, local second node is global node 4. So I'm going to pick this one, this bottom corner of each of these element matrices. Bottom 3 by 3, bottom corner 3 by 3, or you can say bottom right corner 3 by 3 matrix, or the components in that location. If I add them together, location wise, if I add them together, I'm going to get this matrix. That is what is done here. You can see here. That is what is done. And then what are the unknowns? What are the unknowns? U4, V4, W4. And what is the force that is applied? What is force that is applied? It's applied in the negative y direction. And please note that all the quantities are Newton mm, whereas here it is in kilonewtons. Here, even though E is given in kilonewton per mm square, that is taken care when we are calculating this one. That is taken care here. That is taken care here. So instead of kilonewtons, we want to make it in newtons, and it's acting in the negative y direction. So that is what is plugged in here, minus 3000. Okay. So now you can easily solve this equation system. You can easily solve this equation system and determine what is U4, V4, W4. Once you get U4, V4, W4, once you get U4, V4, W4, you can determine the local displacements and then strains, stresses, and axial forces. Here directly axial force computation is shown. From this you can even find what are if you remove this E, if you divide whatever value you get here with E, you are going to get stress. Sorry, you are going to get whatever value you get here, if you divide with area of cross section, you are going to get stress. Or if you divide this whatever value here with EA, you are going to get what is strain. Okay, you can compare, you can just cross check what is that value. Once you get these forces, so element 1 is in tension, element 2 is in tension, element 3 is in compression. So that is what this finite element analysis is giving. So it is your responsibility to check whether the solution is making sense or not. You cannot simply throw whatever you get the values and say your job is ended. You need to convince whether these values are making sense or not. So let's see, element 1, element 2 are in tension, element 3 is in compression. So let's see whether that is correct or not. So this is element 1, this is element 2, this is element 3, and you are pulling it. When you pull this in this direction, you can qualitatively or intuitively tell that this is going to be in tension, this is going to be in tension, this is going to be in compression. So that is what the results are also showing. So the results make sense, okay, provided the numerical values, if you have not made any mistakes, those values, numerical values, are going to be correct. Any questions here? Any questions? So if there are no questions, I'm going to start a new topic, okay? And here, the basis of that new topic is this one. The basis of that new topic is this one. You can see here the stiffness matrix. I told you this once you do this integration, this is going to be the stiffness matrix provided E and A are constant. Provided E and A are constant. Suppose E and A are varying as a function of x. If E and A are varying as a function of x, and that variation is complicated, okay? That variation is complicated. Then please note that we are not going to physically integrate these things. When we implement in software, or when we automate it by writing code, this integration we are going to do numerical integration. So we are going to spend some time on numerical integration. That is going to be the next topic. And you can see in the this assignment 2, if you see assignment 2 problem, you see assignment problem 10. Here problem number 10, cross-sectional area is linearly varying. Instead of linearly varying, you can have different types of variation, okay? And if you see any of these, if you happen to take flight either at Chennai airport or some other airport, you can see the structural members, the shape of these, the compression members and tension members. They are going to have some kind of fancy shapes. So the shape need not be linear, or it can have some kind of some other shape. Okay, this variation can be quadratic variation or whatever. So if that is the case, your integral or whatever is their integrand, this integrand is going to be, it's going to be not simple. So in that case, how to do this integration? How to do it, this integration in a easy manner, so that it's implementable in a commercial software, or you can easily implement when you're writing a code. So for that, we'll spend some time on numerical integration. This numerical integration is not something new to you. You already, if you have done any course related to this numerical analysis, or computer methods or computing techniques in your undergraduate course or in graduate course, this may not be something which is totally like no new thing for you. You already know it. Or even in your 12th class, or when you are doing, if it is civil engineering students, when they are doing surveying to find the area of irregular shapes, they must have used some of these concepts. Okay, but there is a slight difference that we will see in today's class. So let's start with this this kind of curve. Okay, so these rules that we are going to discuss, or whatever rules, whatever integration rules that you have studied so far, they are you can classify them as Newton-Cotes rules. Okay, you can classify them as Newton-Cotes rules. Once I complete a few of these, once again I will remind you. So whatever you already know, they are classified as Newton-Cotes rules. So now let's discuss this one. I have this curve. I have this curve fx. I have a nonlinear function. That nonlinear function is plotted. That is this fx. Okay. I want to find area under this curve. I want to find area under this curve between 2 points. I want to find area under this curve between 2 points. What is the meaning of that? That is actually like a physical meaning of that integration that you are doing. If you integrate fx from x1 to x2, basically what it is physically, what physically it means, you are trying to find area under this curve fx between the points x1 and x2. Okay, between the points x1 and x2, that is what this integral is. Integral x1 to x2 fx dx is nothing but trying to find area under this area enclosed by that curve and the x-axis. Whatever area that is enclosed by that curve and x-axis between 2 points, x1 and x2. And please note that we as engineers, I'm not so much particular about exact value of that area. I'm happy if you can give me approximate value. Okay, if you can give me approximate value of that, I'm happy. So how much you can compromise on that all depends on you. Okay, how much you can compromise on that all depends on you. But I'm not interested in the exact value. I'm happy if I get an approximate value. So if that is the case, this integral is approximately, you can see here symbol, it's an approximation symbol. This integral is approximately equal to h times function evaluated at some point. What is that point? Function evaluated at x1. You are evaluating function at x1 and you are multiplying with some quantity h. H is called weight function, or that quantity is called weight function. That quantity is called weight function. Okay. So by doing this kind of approximation, what you are basically doing, actually your curve is this one, fx, and you want area enclosed by this curve between points x1, x2. Okay. But what you are doing by this is, you are evaluating, or you are trying to take this value, whatever value here, this dimension here, what the function value at this point, and multiply with this x2 minus x1. x2 minus x1 is nothing but h. So by this rule, by this whatever is called rectangle rule, what you are doing is, you are evaluating function at the lower limit, or let me back out. You are evaluating function at one of the limiting points and multiply it with distance between the 2 points, and you are trying to approximate, that is the area. So what is the amount of accuracy, or amount of this one error that you are going to have? The amount of area that you missed is this one. Amount of area, you covered only this rectangular portion, you missed this portion. Okay, so that is going to be your error. Okay, I told I'm happy with, I don't want exact solution for this, I'm happy with approximate solution. But when I say approximate solution, I need to pay price for that. I need to pay price for it. How much price I'm paying? This much amount of area I'm missing. Okay. So this is going to be the error in this approximation. And here, please note that this figure is a schematic. Okay. And depending on this function, this function can be this, even though I mentioned it as function of x, this function can be constant function, this function can be linear, this function can be quadratic, cubic, or whatever non-linearity you mentioned. So when this approximation is going to be exact, that approximation is going to be exact if the function is constant function. If what is meant by constant function, the function value at x1 and function value at x2 both are same, so it's going to be flat. Then this quantity is going to give exact result. And what is meant by constant function? Constant function is nothing but zeroth order function. Constant function is nothing but zeroth order function. Linear function is first order function. Quadratic function is second order function. So for zeroth order polynomial, I'm saying polynomial, zeroth order polynomial, this approximation is going to give you exact. And here it is written function evaluated at x1. It doesn't matter whether you evaluated x1 or x2. Let's put instead of x1, let's put x2. So then you are going to overestimate the area. Then also you are not going to get exact. So your error is going to be on the other side. Your error is going to be on the other side. Okay. So now coming back, any questions here? Any questions? So that this rule is called rectangle rule because you are basically evaluating area of a rectangle. So let me summarize. Rectangle rule, you are evaluating function at a point. That point is Either it can be lower limit or upper limit. It doesn't matter. And multiply with the distance between the 2 points. So you see how simplified it is. Instead of evaluating this integral exactly, you are evaluating, just evaluate the function. You're not at all doing it. You're not even doing any integration. So whatever integrand is there, in that integrand, you substitute this x1 and try to find that integrand value at that point. Multiply with a weight function. This is what is called weight function. For rectangle rule, weight function is nothing but distance between upper limit and lower limit. Okay? And this rectangle rule is going to be giving you exact result if the order of function is 0. Order of function 0 meaning if the function is constant. And why n is equal to 1 is written here? Why n is equal to 1 is written? The meaning of this is you are evaluating this function only at a point. This function is evaluated at a point, either upper limit or either lower limit or upper limit. So that's why n is equal to 1. N indicates number of points at which you are evaluating the function. And why that is important? Why that is important? Please note that whatever we are discussing here is not just simply this kind of simple integral. Suppose this function, before I started, I showed you this one. And then I motivated you for this discussion. But it is not necessary that this function is a closed form function. This function need not be closed form function. To get this function itself, you may need to do a finite element analysis. So don't assume this is going to be some integrand is something closed form, you know how it looks like. It need not be. It can be as complicated as you can think. So that is the reason that is the reason we are adopting this kind of approximate techniques. So when this function is, if it is becoming complicated, the time that is required to evaluate this function also increases. So I am evaluating in this rectangle rule, I am evaluating this function at only 1 point. So that count is important. At how many number of points are evaluating the function? Because there is a computational expense associated with that. So we always want to evaluate function at less number of points and try to get maximum out of it. So that's why that is noted here. So in rectangle rule, you are evaluating function at a point. That point can be either on the lower limit, or it can be lower limit point or upper limit point. And once you get the function value, you are multiplying with the distance between the 2 points. Distance between the 2 points is nothing but weight. So that is what is rectangle rule. And if I want to improve this, what I can do? Instead of, okay, I'm going to spend some more, like, let's say you are trying to buy something, and then once you hear pros and cons of that particular variant or particular brand, then you may decide, okay, I'm going to spend some more money. I'm going to go for a better quality variant or better quality product. So if that is your choice, let's say here we evaluated function at only 1 point. If I give you an offer, okay, you get better accuracy if you evaluate this function at both the points. That is what is trapezium rule. In trapezium rule, you are going to evaluate function at 2 points, both at the upper limit as well as the lower limit. and each of these function you are going to multiply with a weight function. And that weight function is half the distance between these 2 points. Weights for each of these terms, weights are same. For each of these function value, weight is same. Weight is half the distance between the 2 points. Half the distance between the 2 points. And when this is going to be exact, when trapezium rule is going to be exact, if the function is suppose if the function is constant function, then you are going to get exact. If the function is a linear function also, you are going to get exact. So this trapezium rule is going to be exact up to linear function. Okay, that is what is written. Formula will be exact for fx of degree 1 or less, 1 or 0. Anyway, time is running out. I'm going to stop here. Here n is equal to 2. Why n is equal to 2? Because you are evaluating function at 2 points. Some example is given here. Some example is given. You can, this is all self-explanatory. You can go through that. And when you do this using trapezium rule, this is what you get. And whereas exact, you can easily do this integration. Exact integration. Exact value is this. So this is the amount of error you are getting. Okay, I got some error here also. So I'm ready to pay some more price. So I'm going to evaluate function at 3 points. That results in Simpson's rule. And we will discuss this in tomorrow's class. Okay, I'll stop here.